G'day guys and welcome back. Today I'm going to do another D&M, yet deep and meaningful, and I'm going to talk about love your neighbour. Today I'm going to start off with a verse from Luke chapter 10 verse 25 to 37. This is a parable of the Good Samaritan, but first it starts off with a group of Pharisees, Sadducees, questioning Jesus. So here's how it goes. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" "What is written in the law?" he replied. "How do you read it?" The Pharisee answered, "Love your Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might." And also, the second one goes as this: love your neighbour as yourself. "You have answered correctly," Jesus replied. "Do this and you will live." But he wanted to justify himself, and he asked Jesus, And who is my neighbour?" In reply, Jesus said, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he travelled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, poured on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. "Look after him," he said, "and when I return, I'll reimburse you for any extra expenses you may have." Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbour to the man who fell into the hands of the robber? The expert in the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." Jesus talks about love in a meaningful and action-based way. So as you can see in Luke 10:27, loving your neighbour is the second most important thing that we as followers can do. But how do we love our neighbours? Well, in short, how does someone love you? If someone sees you sinning, do they love you by yelling and screaming at you and cursing you? Do they do it by talking about you behind your back to others? Do they do nothing? Do they not come to you and speak about it? Or do they see you in hospital or know that you're in hospital, do not come and ask what you need or what comforts you would like? So intrinsically and naturally, we know how someone loves us. And that's how we are called to love others. So let's head back. Love your neighbour as yourself. Do you have to love yourself? Is it something that comes naturally? You love your neighbour as though they are you. You love your neighbour as though they matter to you as much as yourself. Do to your neighbour just because you love them, not because you have to. What was the reason that God sent his only Son to us? Was God had to? Was God forced to? No. John 3:16, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him will not perish but have everlasting life." God cared about you more than what he was going to suffer doing so. God cared more for you than being hated on by mankind. God cared more for you than the pain and suffering of being tortured to death. God would rather take the price of sin, which is death, and being separated from himself, than to go eternity without you. Love your neighbour as though whatever you could suffer doing so is less valuable than the act of loving your neighbour. If you don't love your neighbour, then let's do what Jesus says in Matthew 21:22. That is, if you believe that you will receive what you are asking for in prayer. Meaning that pray to God, believing that God is able to and will stir the love towards your neighbour that he desires you to have. As you see someone in need, go do, as God stirs his love in you. Even if you can only give your hands in service to your neighbour, then go give. Invest that denarii that God put in your hands and watch what God does in your life. I hope this was helpful to you. Remember, it's your life. Look after yourself.